Hello, everyone, and welcome to MEP Next Gen, a podcast dedicated to bridge the gap between minority and engineering students and the MEP program. My name is Kaleia, and I am a student studying industrial engineering with a certificate in entrepreneurship and innovation and a certificate in systems.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clifford Underwood. I am an agriculture engineering student with a concentration in machine systems. Today's episode is extraordinary. Not only is that our first episode, but we're also celebrating the 50th anniversary of Minority Engineering Program. Kaleia, can you believe it's been half a century already?
I actually cannot believe it's been half a century, Cliff. This program was founded 50 years ago to support minority students, such as you and me, at Purdue University. And then even more amazing, it actually continues to provide such impactful resources today, from the Academic Success Center to free tutoring to free Donut Fridays, to welcoming staff and just like a community overall. MEP truly has it all, and it has become a cornerstone of support for so many minorities in engineering. What is your favorite MEP resource, Cliff?
That's a good question. One of my favorite MEP resources, I have to say off the bat, is the Academic Success Center. Mm-hmm. Just because from day one, from freshman year, it's always been so approachable. I felt so welcome. It almost felt like a second home. And, you know, you ask students currently today, you always see me in there. Mm-hmm. So that kind of is a test to that statement as far as it being a second home. And
I think MEP for sure is your home at this point. I think it's your apartment.
Yeah, I live there rent free. Well, tuition, you know.
You're paying for it.
Yeah, I'm paying for it, so I might as well use it. But to kind of go along with your point here, Donut Fridays. Yeah. That's also another one for me. That puts the icing on the cake, right? Mm-hmm. That's that kind of that final driver, you know, to finish out the week. The center is more than just, you know, a study space, right? It's a place where we can connect, you know, recharge, support each other, you know, not only academically, but, you know, professionally, personal as well. And speaking of support, one of my favorite resources is our guest today. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Mrs. Virginia Booth Womack, the phenomenal director of the Minority Engineering Program for over 20 years. Mrs. Womack has been instrumental in shaping the multitude of retention and recruitment programs that MEP offers. Beyond her role as a director, she served as the National Association of Multicultural Engineering Program Advocates National President and was interim executive director of the National Society of Black Engineers. On top of that, she advises a multitude of multicultural student organizations. Mrs. Womack is also a proud Boilermaker, having graduated from Purdue in 1993 with a bachelor's in science and industrial engineering. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Womack.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We're so honored for you to join our first ever episode, and it's truly an honor just for you to be here.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited about this podcast and the potential that it has to really help students understand what we do. Yep. And how we can be of service to them throughout their matriculation at Purdue.
Right. And to kind of go off that, I guess that kind of leads us to our first question here is, Mrs. Womack, you know, how did you first get involved with the, you know, Minority Engineering Program? And secondly, what has driven you to stay so passionately committed to it over the years?
Well, I first got involved with MEP during my time as an undergrad student. I was actually here in the late 70s. I was here when the National Society of Black Engineers was founded in 1975. Very active with that organization. And the goal of that organization, they call themselves now NSB. So you probably, of course, you've heard of that, you're members. So NSB had the goal of addressing the attrition rate for African American students in particular, and students of color in general. And I believe back then, 80% of black students had left the university within the first year. And the goal of NSB was to address that as a part of our personal responsibility as students, to hold each other accountable, to form whatever alliances we needed to make sure students knew they were supported. And NSBE was a family and still is today. So I was involved with NSBE and became involved with MEP because MEP and NSBE sort of came up together. They were birthed in the same space. And that was a big piece to know not only did we have a student organization, but we had faculty and administrators that also endorsed what we were doing. Back then, it was Dr. Art Bond, who was very instrumental in pushing for support. Marion Williamson Blaylock, she was my champion. Because as a young lady, a lot of times, the kind of attention and focus that we needed may come best from a female administrator. And also the main endorser for MEP and NSBE was Dr. Arthur Hansen, who was president of Purdue at the time. He was amazing in not only supporting us, but in pushing the envelope and getting us to get out there and make a difference, make a change, not only at Purdue, but in the world. So he was a very strong advocate for what was happening at Purdue becoming a national model. And I was involved at that time. As a matter of fact, he encouraged me to run for the national chair position. And I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that.
Right.
And he really encouraged me. I was fearful of it. What would they say? I'm a woman. All those things that come into your mind came to me. But he was very steadfast. You can do this. I endorse you. And I went to a conference and I ran for chair and I got it. So I did become the first female national chair. And my success as a chair was enabled by President Hansen. You know, it was during that time that all the first charter chapters were formed. And they were formed after the Purdue model. You know, you got to have so many members, you got to have your constitution. So I was very excited to work on that aspect of NSBE's growth. As a matter of fact, today, if I'm remembered for anything, yes, I was the first female national chair, but I want to be remembered for growing the foundational chapters because, you know, it's good to be acknowledged for gender, but what did you do?
Right.
You know, we've got students today that want leadership, but what are you going to do? How are you going to make the organization better under your leadership? So I was a part of that, but I was a little bit too deeply involved, and I ended up being dropped from the university for academic failure. And I was ashamed of that. And I told President Hansen, and he tried to encourage me to get back in the game, but I didn't. I stayed out for 9 years. And then I found out that if I didn't return, I would lose all my credits. And I only needed about 5 classes to graduate. So I came back, and this when I came back, as a matter of fact, Ms. Blaylock, my predecessor and the MEP director for about 35 years, she basically threatened me, you better come back and finish this degree. I don't know what you're tripping on, you know. And I just didn't think I could do it.
Right.
I'm too old. Look at how long I've been away. And the classes that I failed sincerely. It's like I put everything I had into failing because I really didn't understand the material. And I was afraid to take it on now that I was almost 10 years older. But I came back, and yes, it was still hard. Classes that I struggled with are still struggle points. I find it amazing. Students today still struggle with these classes, that Chem 115, thermodynamics.
Yep.
Double makes you want to cry. The WE 201. Now it's 2K1. And, of course, statics and dynamics. You know, those were difficult classes for me to visualize. But now that I was back at Purdue, I had a full organization. NSBE had probably 60 or 70 members, and they were doing well. They had alums that would come back. They had professionals. We had some more faculty. So coming back and seeing all the support, gave me the confidence that I could do this. And so I'm here today. And when I went away to work finally as an engineer, a degreed engineer from Purdue, I spent about 19 years. And when we learned that Miss Blaylock was going to be retiring, I was asked to consider the position. And, it didn't seem like a good career move for me then. But now when I look back over the last 20 years, it's the best career decision I've ever made, because I love working with students. I love inspiring or encouraging them even when it feels impossible. Just letting them know you can do this, you know. So that's my passion for MEP, and I believe that these programs are critical for students to know they belong and that what they're going through is not strange, that a lot of people have gone through the same thing and they persevered and they got through it.
Right. Well, Ms. Womack, you mentioned Miss Marion Blaylock, right? The visionary who laid the foundation for the minority engineering program. Could you, share a little more about kind of what was she like and what was her mission, and when did she start the program, right? Why was MEP founded, and what impact did she hope to achieve?
Well, just know that initiatives like minority engineering programs were cropping up across the country. The nation was looking at the lack of students of color, especially African American students that were pursuing engineering and science. And a professor here, Dr. Arthur Bond, I can't even say how important he was in sort of stimulating the interest, not only amongst other administrators, but amongst students, how important this was. Right. And a lot of the early work, Dr. Bond laid some of that foundation. Marion came in. There was a young lady, Dr. Sawney Taylor, that worked in the office and helped students. She coordinated a lot of the events that led to the NSBE first conference. But after she left that same year, Ms. Blaylock came on board as her replacement. She was actually assistant dean of students. I think, I don't want to misquote, but I know she was involved in the dean's office in an administrative capacity before she took on this job. So Marion was a go-getter. She was not afraid. She had a lot of tenacious ways of helping students to really understand and grip the challenges of being at a university and graduating. As I mentioned, she worked in the dean's office, so she had a strong history working with student success, different things and paths that students take that they find difficult to navigate. And she rode that experience into continuing some programs that already existed and developing new programs to address the pathways. We used to call it pipeline.
Right.
But we talk about it now as pathways to engineering. So Ms. Blaylock, there was no end to programmatic content. And in some ways, I think I've picked that up because, people say we go a little bit too far. But I think it's going to take that and more. So her programs, I believe, started at the 6th grade all the way up through graduation. And I've met college deans of engineering across the country that are phenomenal in their field. And upon talking to them, it amazed me when some of them said to me, I learned about engineering by going to a summer camp at Purdue.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking one or two. There's several people can trace being touched by Purdue. So when I see students that come to these camps that we do now, I look at them and I'm saying to myself, I don't know who you're going to become, but we here at Purdue want to encourage you to explore and find your dream. And that's what Marion did. She was known for that. She worked longer hours than I do. And I remember, Marion, you got to go home. And now I go through some of the same stuff because there's a lot to do, but it's good work. It's heart work. Some people talk about hard, but it is definitely heart work. It requires passion, and students can feel that when you have passion for them, even if they're going through. They know that you have passion, and sometimes that's what they hang on to keep it moving.
I truly agree with that. And as a student that has personally been impacted by not only you, but the minority engineering program, because I think you're the one that actually brought me in deeper because I was a tutor. I truly agree with that. And I think that you do also bring that community. And I do want to thank you for bringing me into the minority engineering program because it's changed my life personally and my college experience as a whole. But with that being said, we know the rich history of the minority engineering program, but we also want to shift focus to the present. So what current initiatives or resources do you think are particularly impactful for today's students, but then also how do MEP students continue, how is MEP continuing to support minority engineering students in new and innovative ways? Are there any tips and tricks? What's up your sleeve?
Well, I don't know that there's much up the sleeve, but I will say underrepresented minorities, a lot of people don't get that. They're like, well, why do we need these programs? Is it for black students? And the answer is no to the is it for black students? And the answer about why do we need it, we look at the data and the numbers. And when you have a year where you bring in over 3,000 students and less than 50 of them are African American, it throws up a flag that says, uh-oh, what's happening here? Why are students not choosing Purdue? So MEP looks at the data, and underrepresented means compared to the state and the national averages, we're not doing as well as our peer institutions.
Right.
So how do we attract more students to Purdue? And if it's not the question of how do we attract them, the question is how do we get them to choose Purdue? Because I think the admissions department has done a good job in attracting students and accepting them. But when it comes to choosing, something else seems to happen that shifts them away. So we need to think about what are the ways that we can make students really know that Purdue is a good place for them. It's a place they can call home. Sometimes folks are a little afraid to be in the middle of the cornfields of Indiana, although I tell them we got the best corn in the world.
Bye.
I have some at home now, and I just love it. But, that's not going to get us students. So the programs that we do that I'm surprised you guys didn't mention is being exposed to corporate partners, being exposed to alums that come right back right after they've graduated to see you guys and to let you know how they're doing. Those small things really does something in your head. You're like, wow, she's out there or he's out there making all this money. I can do this. You need that. What it takes to graduate in my mind is just belief based on experience. I don't just believe it to believe it, but I've seen people that have done it and they made it, so I can make it. And although MEP has a focus on looking at the state and trying to be competitive amongst our peers, when you look at national data, the programs that we do and the work that we do is for any student that wants to participate. So I've had students come in and say, well, do I have to be a minority? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, we welcome you because the struggle is real for all students. And maybe their struggle is not being the only person that looks like them in a room, but struggle is struggle. So I've had students come in and we talk it through, and I want to see them move forward and graduate. So I like that we can prove that we're not exclusive, that what we do is for all students. And I think in my heart of hearts, if we do solve or address effectively the problem that impacts African Americans, then that solution will work for everyone. So it's a worthy cause to pursue, but the ultimate goal is student success. Student access and success in engineering.
Yeah. Just to add, I would say that, minority engineering program has put, me and a number of students in positions that I would have never imagined, right? From things like you mentioned, some of our programs, right? So if we think about the receptions that we have during our RR week, that's given us kind of that personal relationship with people in industry. I've met people that, I bring your name up and they're like, oh, that's my mother, right? They came up in the program, just even Engineering 180. That was a big one. That's what really drew me in and drew me close to some people in my cohort, as far as, seeing people like me or similar within industry being successful. And seeing that it's not one answer or one way to do things, right? There's multiple ways to skin a cat. And so that it's been like a personal testament, just being a part of some of those programs.
She always says that we're her kids. So,
yes.
that's very true. She said she never had kids, and we are the kids.
We are her kids.
Yeah, but I don't understand why you got to skin the cat. And then you want to find multiple ways to do it.
It's a metaphor.
Something about that. Just give something to me.
Look, sometimes the cat got too much. Look, we're not going to visit this.
Okay.
I understood what you were saying.
Yeah, thank you.
There's many ways to make a loaf of bread. How about that?
Is there, though? I think there's actually one way.
So
okay, all right.
Moving on.
Different types of bread.
Okay.
We can settle for that.
Okay.
So, looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of the minority engineering program, right? What should, current students and prospective students look forward to in terms of, resources, opportunities, and just overall community support?
Well, when it comes to the future, as we look at different initiatives that happen at other universities, you mentioned involvement with the National Association of Multicultural Engineering Program Advocates.
Yeah.
That actually, the acronym is NAMEPA, and we call it NAMEPA, just so y'all know that.
Okay.
But this is a group of program advocates across the country, whether it's MIT, Cornell, Purdue, UCLA, you name it. We do best practice sharing. And as the climate changes and challenges to how we have to address difference become very prevalent, then we want to know, how do we stay in the game and how do we play it the way the law requires us to play it? So you're always looking for ways to make sure you're in compliance, but don't take your eyes off the end goal or the end game, and that's student success. As far as, I've said this to people, when we get the retention rates and the graduation rates so that there is no gap between underrepresented students and the total cohort, then that's not a job we need to do. When we get our enrollment up so that it's at least close to the state and the national average, you don't need an MEP program to do that.
Right.
You can focus more on student success strategies, and that would be addressed for all students. So how do we stay relevant? How do we make sure that any student that needs support can find MEP as a place they can come? And of course, we have great advisors. We have in every department, there are people that are passionate about student success. So it's not to replace or compete with any other unit, but how do we work together? And I've had different schools within the College of Engineering. We'll get together about students or about how to support students. And it's just good to see the collaboration and us working outside of a silo mindset, but work as a team. And I think if we can do that effectively, students will figure out what they need to do to matriculate at Purdue, and they will show each other.
Right.
A lot of times when students come to me and they have an issue, I may call Kaleia. I say, I need you to talk to this student, because it may be a similar scenario that she may have been through, or you.
Right.
And I think it feels and sounds better coming from another student than it does oftentimes coming from me. So I'm learning how to back up and let those that are doing the work, those that are being successful, advocate for student success.
Right.
I love that. And I'm just like, yeah, this is like still super exciting just because we do get to talk about these things and talk about the resources that you are implementing or you're looking to implement. But as we go into our 50th year, I did want to ask, what made you start advising such community-founded organizations such as MAIAS, which is the Latinos in Science and Engineering, or NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers? What made you want to advise us? And then what makes you want to give back to other organizations that you also give back to that are multicultural?
Well, I think having a shared experience is a natural give back because students know when you've been where they are. And when they share an experience and you share yours, they go, okay, she gets me. And it's got to be believable.
Right.
And so giving back may just be telling your story and being available, because I know there are a lot of students and I can't be there for everyone. So how do we spread that community of understanding so that students will find that if they come to the center, a lot of times, I'll be sitting in my office and I'll just hear chatter. And I'm thinking, they should be quiet in the center. Oh, my God. And I'll jump up and go and say, shh. And the students will get quiet. But as soon as I walk away, it builds up again. And then I was doing some research, and I ran into some articles that talked about how students learn, their cultural capital, things that, are unique about different cultures. And I know we have a chatty nature as a people. It's not just African American. I think all cultures have a chattiness about them. And there was one student that, she didn't say this to me, but someone else asked her why she went to the center, the MEP Success Center. And she said, it's the only place on campus where I can be myself and not apologize. I heard that and I said, whoa, how do I make sure that students can be themselves within some structure? And how do I reinforce that? How do I make it a cultural spot? I mean, all across campus, there's culture, but it may not be culture of color. So you'll see pictures, you'll see all kind of artifacts that speak to the past. But when I see amongst those pictures a person of color, I notice that I always go up to that picture because I want to know, who is this? How did they get on the wall? Well, we can create our walls, and I'm seeing schools in the College of Engineering that are doing just that. You got the Helen Bass Williams Academic Success Center. She was my advisor. When I was an undergrad, I started out as a psych major. So when I see that there are places that's being named, I'm like, this is amazing. We're living in a good time. And I just want to be a part of that. I want to make a contribution. It may never be a building or anything like that, but I want to be in the hearts and minds of some students that will say, hey, Miss Booth did this for me when I was there, and that's enough. I don't even know if I answered your question. I forgot what the question was. I had that ramble.
Yes, you did answer the question. But then just to add on to that, after hearing about all the history, not only with Marion Blaylock, but also just NSBE in general, because you were there since the founding and you've been such an integral part in growing it, but also just your struggles when it came to school in the 70s before you took that little 10-year gap year. I just find it interesting that all these challenging classes were still hard, so it has not gotten better.
If anything, it's got harder.
It has not, but it's okay because MEP is here to help.
No, it's shame on us. when I say us, I'm talking about people like me.
I agree.
That we have not figured this out.
Oh, man.
Thermo is thermo. 2 + 2 is 4. I don't care what year you look at it.
Yeah.
Why haven't we unpacked the concepts that students struggle with in a class like thermo or even chemistry? Why haven't we put together a system that helps students, helps them visualize what the concepts are? Because for me, if it's on paper, two-dimensional, I just can't see it. But if you stand up a model that's double E, I might be able to follow where the current is going. I don't learn in flat. I gotta see
Hands
it. How do
on.
I feel it?
Yeah.
Or, if we know what the concepts are that students struggle with in math. I had a student, we have an algebra by 7th grade program for 3rd graders. And this little boy this was doing a virtual program, he just threw up his hands and said, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? He said, I don't get this word perimeter. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. I'll never get it. He just went through this whole thing. And I'm like, he doesn't get perimeter and he's ready to quit. And so we talked about perimeter, and no matter how you put it, he still didn't get it. Until he told me, I said, well, what do you like to do? He says, I play basketball. I said, really? I said, have you ever gone around where's the 3-point line? And he knew exactly where it was, and he went through his stuff, even though he was a kid. But when we start talking about that basketball court, and if he walked around all the edges and measured it, he'd be measuring the perimeter. And he just lit up like, oh, that's all it is? I said, yeah. But the point in my mind was, how do we convert those blocks, those mental blocks based on words, into an activity for students when they're young?
Right.
So that when they get into that math class and they hear the word, they already know what it is. Because a lot of times they pull back because they just don't know.
Yeah.
And they don't want people to know I don't know. So everybody know, and this happens today. Everybody thinks that everybody in class knows what the professor's talking about, and I don't, when probably 80% of the class don't have a clue. And I may be wrong, but
you're not.
I'm guilty of it.
I definitely look like, but then I have to review it later.
You look around because everybody else, I remember taking an exam. It was a physics exam, and the first problem I was like, what?
Yeah.
And everybody around me was writing, and I remember thinking, what are they writing?
Tell me.
I just froze.
Yeah.
But some of this we can parse out. It's not about not having previous knowledge. It's about how to overcome the stress and the anxiety of thinking that I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
I think we knock ourselves out of the game just by not believing in self. So I believe that programs like this help students embrace that as well.
Yeah.
I agree as well. Definitely say tutoring in the community helps profoundly when it comes to attacking those hard classes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to add, we have tutoring, of course, in the minority engineering program, but something that's not official that I kind of hinted at earlier is that we have that sense of mentoring, right? So we have, anywhere from freshmen doing a lot of the FYE classes to, some of the seniors doing, those 400, 500 level classes that's been through the struggle. That's they might have navigated or found, the little caveats, or they found, some practice exams that weren't, on the internet or whatever the case may be. So just having that extra sense of mentorship and, access to people, like I said, that's been through a similar struggle, I think is one of the key points of the minority engineering program.
Agreed. Yes. So thank you, Ms. Womack, for just sharing your insights and experiences with us today on our first ever episode of the MEP Next Gen podcast. As a student who has once again personally benefited from these resources. It's truly an honor to just learn about the history and the bright future that the Minority and Engineering program definitely has. Cliff, would you like to introduce our final segment? Yeah.
Absolutely. As we wrap up our episode, we'd like to ask our guests a fun question to get their thoughts on, what they believe is the most popular resource among our students. So, out of the following options, which one do you think students favor the most? The first being the Academic Success Center, the second being the Strong Sense of Community, third being the tutorial services, the fourth being the supportive staff, fifth being the recruitment receptions, or the always popular Donut Fridays.
What's your answer?
Drum roll, please.
Well, the only answer to that is a sense of community.
Okay, period. That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Round of applause.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think you were gonna get that. What was the second answer though? What was the second?
That's the only one.
There was no second runner-up?
No, there was a second
Sure?
runner-up though.
Come on now.
Are you sure?
You asked me the question.
Yeah. Okay, fine. You got it right. But the second runner-up was Donut Fridays. But
see, I can't. If I try to eat a donut, Cliff will take it out of my
Yeah.
that's why you got to
Because
do it in the closet.
I know until I'm in the closet all the time.
Because
And
I
there-
can
you
hear
know,
the rummaging.
People are looking through my window trying to see if Miss Booth has a donut.
Yep.
And I can't enjoy it.
Nope.
I want to sit back, chew on it,
Nope.
throw some coffee
No.
behind a nice bite of donut.
See.
So I can't enjoy the donut like y'all do.
Nope.
I even walk across the hall, somebody got something to say.
You know those kids when it would get real quiet. It's like, hold on, what are they up to? that's her.
No, I can see that. If she's quiet, you're like,
She's
you got to
real
go check
quiet.
on her.
You gotta go check on her. So I
gotta
walk
sneak.
in with my acai bowl. I'm just looking like, okay, now what you got behind your back?
I got to sneak to get candy. It's
Yep.
just wrong.
You don't
I
sneak in
gotta-
front of me though. You looked straight at my eyes
She don't
and
feel
ate
you
it,
yet.
unwrapped it and ate. I'm like, did you just?
But
Are
see,
you supposed to be eating that?
You're the only one that cuts me some slack. He doesn't.
Nope. Nope. No
I think
room
that's my
for
problem.
error.
I need to do better.
You
I
gotta
need to do
you
better.
gotta put your foot down.
Okay.
Gotta put your foot down. Thank you again, Mrs. Womack, for joining us on this special episode of MEP Next Gen. We hope this conversation has inspired our listeners and provided a deeper understanding of the vital role that the minority engineering plays at Purdue. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to explore the incredible resources and stories that make up our engineering community.
Yeah, and until then, keep striving, stay connected, and remember, MEP is there to support you every step of the way. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on MEP Next Gen.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
And just like that.